Well, it is K-State week, the Sunflower Showdown this Saturday. K-State at Kansas here in the booth. Senior night, and we are here to break this game down for you with another guest of ours who's been on before, former defensive tackle Sam Burt joins us on the podcast tonight to talk about K-State week and break down this game for you Jayhawk fans.
It was good, John. It's your boy JD6 here with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man.
All right. Welcome in to the KC Sports Authority podcast. I'm your host, Keegan Russell, with my guy, JB. And special shout out, welcome in Sam Burt. Sam, it's been a couple months since we had you on the podcast last. I know we had you on to kind of break down the season preview. Before we get into K-State itself, first off, welcome on. And then two, just kind of give us what's been your thoughts on the season thus far for the Hawks.
Well, I will say that I feel like I was pretty spot on. I think I said 8. What would it have been? No, yeah, 8 wins, possibly 9, and I feel like I'm right on track with that. Pretty close anyway. I think initially I would have thought that we would have traded Texas Tech and OU, but it's worked. It's been great. So I'm not complaining about an OU win. So no, but in all seriousness, I think Coach Leipold said it really well last week of like this team. In his post-game interview, like this team has a lot of potential, obviously, as we all know. They're starting to really put it together. I think sometimes maybe get a little ahead of themselves, and I don't know, just like things like last week, and he addressed that in his last post-game interview. But I think that the wheels are churning, but obviously still have things to work on and still have things to put together still. And I think that you have seen that, and that's reflected in the win column, the and loss column this season. So yeah, I think overall it's been a really obviously solid season for the team. I mean, 7 wins for the first time since I think the last time we had 7 wins was 2009. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so super solid season so far. Excited to see what happens this week.
So considering all of the adversity this team's gone through this year, from the Jalen Daniels injuries to Bean getting hurt, guys getting hurt throughout the season, some unexpected losses, sitting here where we are at 7-3, considering all that has gone down this year, do you still think this team is right where they should be? Are we ahead of schedule? Are we outperforming? Are we underperforming? Just where do you feel like we are sitting here right now, given all that this team's gone through this season, to still find themselves 7-3 and still a top 25 team in the country?
Yeah, I think we're right on track. I think some people forget where this program has come from, right? So it's like, obviously I was there for 6 seasons. 5 of those seasons we had all of them we ended up with losing records. But regular season, we're very much so losing records, and so. To take this program and turn it into a 7-win program 3 years into it is something that no coach has been able to do since 2009. So I think we're right on track. Obviously, how this team, beating OU and how strong they look at times is a loss to Texas Tech looks like underperforming, and I get that. But obviously injuries are key, right? And not to make excuses or anything like that, but Cole Ballard played his butt off.
He did.
He had a great game for a freshman coming in and playing like that, playing solid. Did the best he could, and defense played good enough to win, holding Texas Tech to 16 points. The Big 12, that should win a game. So I think we're right on track for where we need to be. I think people forget that it does take time. We would all love to be in the Big 12 championship, right? But at the end of the day, we're going to get there. I believe in Leipold and his staff. We're going to get there, but might not be this season. But that still doesn't mean we're off track. I think we're right where Leipold wants us to be.
I know we've talked about it several times throughout the season, but it's just crazy to see how quickly this turnaround has happened. Right now we're maybe 3 or 4 plays away from being one-loss team. We're a half of football. We're a quarter of football away from being an undefeated team, right there at the top of the Big 12. Still a small outside shot at a Big 12 championship opportunity if a lot of things break our way down the stretch. But just to see us sitting here 3 years into this Leipold era is just impressive. I know we've said that all year. You said that at the beginning of the year, just the leaps and bounds this program has gone through in such a short time. But I do want to ask you this about Cole Ballard, because I thought he played very well considering the circumstances. As a player, and I know when you guys are in practice each week and in the locker room, it's always next man up mentality. Doesn't matter the skill set, the talent level, whatever the situation is, it's always next man up. But as a player, what is it like going through those scenarios where you were either not expecting to get the play time you did, or you now have to go from being, scout team support guy on the sideline to, okay, my time's now. I'm getting in this game and have to make an impact. What is it like going through that transition mentally as a player, and what do you do to prepare yourself for those situations?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, and this, you can kind of get lost in this sometimes, just staying up to date on all the play calls, right? Because their offense is pumping out different plays every week, right? And defense is a little different, but still you have the different packages that come in every week and specific tailored towards teams. But what's kind of unique about Cole Ballard coming in, I think Coach K mentioned this in his post-game interview, is that they really didn't have to change the playbook that much. And that's awesome, because that's incredible, honestly, for a freshman to come in there and not have to really adjust the playbook that much is really cool. And so I think that's just a testament to him and his just preparation. I really don't think a lot of people on the scout team level or as far back as he would prepare like that. Obviously, I think that he had some level of preparation, right? Because that Jalen's not coming back. He was, at least for that game, wasn't going to play, and so you're the next man up, and so he's had a couple weeks to kind of know that, obviously, and so I think that comes into preparation. But I think it's a credit to him. It's a credit to the coaches to prepare him that well. It is a little, especially in his position at the beginning of the season, you probably didn't expect to really see the field at all, and so it's really a testament to him. It's really hard to think that you're out of it, especially early on in the season. You don't get the shot you want. Obviously, you're following Jalen Daniels and Jason Bean, so you're like, I'm probably gonna count the season out, right? And so to have him be that prepared is pretty incredible. That takes a lot of work, takes a lot of attention, and so it's tough to prepare throughout the season and like he did, and so that's really pros to him.
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job. I was just going to say, I thought he did a fantastic job throughout that game. I mean, I think half the people in attendance probably didn't even know the kid's name, and here he has to come in and play in front of thousands upon thousands of fans and try to deliver in a game that was just so. Let's be honest, it was tough to watch for a long time in that game. I think a lot of the fans were just kind of having some eye rolls and having some should we just leave kind of moments where they sit and reflect on, well, how do I start rationalizing in my brain that if we do lose this game, which it looks like we will, is this okay? Am I going to write this off because this is our third string guy, don't even know the kid's name, and here he knows all this, and he comes out and he was playing tremendously well. I did want to ask you, Sam, this might be a little controversial, but I have to know, were you in favor of going for it on fourth down at the end of the first half? We still had 0 points. It was 0-10. We ended up going for a field, or not going for the field goal. We ended up going for a touchdown. Didn't get it, turned it over on downs. If it was you, if you were the coach, would you have tried to get the TD, or would you have gone for a field goal?
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of risk reward there, right? In one sense, You go for the touchdown, you get it. Obviously, you get the momentum back and everything like that. You get the team inspired. But part of me, and obviously the other half of that is you get points and you walk away, and you chip away at that deficit. I probably, just because of my nature, probably would have gone for points, and gotten the 3. But
would have been a one possession game.
Yeah, exactly. And so at that point, like, chip away at the score, like, take what you can get. It's 4th down. But obviously there's a lot that goes into that decision. And so they felt it was best to go for it, and, I'll roll with it. But yeah, I think personally, I probably would have gone for the 3, but
it was a tough call there. It's one of those where if they get the touchdown and it works, you're excited. They don't get the touchdown, you're mad. Had they kicked the field goal, let's say same thing, they go for the field goal, they miss the field goal, fans are going, well, you should have punched it in from the half-yard line on 4th down instead of kicking a field goal. So either way, if it's not successful, fans are upset. If it is successful, they're fine. Unfortunately, though, I don't know if it cost us the game necessarily, but the end of the game could have gone differently had it been a tie there. But the last thing I want to ask you before we get into K-State week is talk to me as a former defensive lineman yourself, the impact a guy like Austin Booker has had, and just talk to us about his performance. He's one of the top 3 edge rushers in the Big 12 statistically. This guy's come in, fans didn't know a whole lot about him as a transfer, and he's had just an immediate impact. Tell me what you can see about this guy's game, why he's effective, and how it's impacting the rest of the guys on that line.
Yeah, I actually wish I would have. I don't really know Austin Booker that personally that well, and I wish I would have, because obviously he came in right after I left. So I actually do wish I would have gone a little time with him, because he seems like he just seems like a super competitor. And I think, like, what stands out with him, and he's impressed me. Obviously, he's impressed a lot of people, but just watching him play has been awesome, because you can just tell, like, he's just like just got a lot of tenacity and drive, and I think it obviously shows on the field. Like, I think some sacks he's made are just hustle and out hustling the tackles and then the people that are blocking him, and so he's really stood out to me as someone who just is dominant, and I think just brings a lot of juice to that D line, who is, I would say, for the most part, pretty young and growing. And so he brings, I think, on the edge especially, brings a lot of that experience, and obviously next year will he is this year dominant, but like next year will be even more so. And so I think that's just so good for our D line. But yeah, he's impressed me a lot, and I think he just has that next level competitor mentality, which obviously the team needs. And that was a great pickup in the transfer portal. Huge transfer. He's super impressed me. He's been awesome to watch.
And I think just his addition too, it's helped guys like Jeremy Robinson on the other side, who coming into the year, the expectation was, all right, you're the guy, you need to go get the double-digit sacks. And he's had a very good year himself too. But when you've got that guy on the other side of the line doing the same thing and getting after the quarterback and super aggressive there, I think it probably makes his job a little easier too. But I've been pretty impressed top to bottom with this D-line this year. I know we talked about at the beginning of the season that even though you guys had quite a few, including yourself, graduate or move on from the program this last year, there's still a ton of depth on this line, and I think we've seen that this year. Guys like Tommy Dunn have had an impressive year. Even Caleb Taylor, I know that was one you talked about at the beginning of the year, that he's probably going to surprise fans, and he's played big minutes the last few weeks here with Tommy Dunn being hurt, and he's had a huge season. Gage Keys on the defensive line, another big impactful transfer guy. Devin Phillips, graduating seniors, had a good year. Hayden Hatcher, of course, he's been here a long time. You've played with him. Just this defensive line, I think, has been solid all year, getting after the quarterback. And that addition of Austin Booker, man, he just pins his ears back and goes. And even if he's not getting a sack, he's impacting the play. I think we saw that even against Texas Tech, that just his presence around the quarterback alters throws and creates potential havoc elsewhere. So been impressive there. But let's get into K-State. It is the K-State week. So K-State, KU football preview. Both teams find themselves sitting in the top 25 currently.
There we go.
Again, I should have wrote this down, and I feel bad that I didn't. I don't know for sure the last exact time both teams were top 25. I didn't go back and look at that. But before we get into this matchup, I wanted to get your take as a Kansan yourself, playing high school football in the state of Kansas, coming up at a time where only one of the programs was really decent. What's the impact having the two big programs in the state competing at the highest level at the same time do for the rest of high school football in the state of Kansas, high school recruiting? What kind of impact and significance does that have across the state?
Yeah, I think it has obviously a lot of importance because, you have two programs. So when I was in high school, to be honest with you, I didn't really know too much about KU, and the place to go was K-State. Just through other recruiting things, K-State ended up not taking me, and KU was the one who offered me a walk-on position, and so I took it. And so to have both programs be competitive is super great for the state. I mean, that was one of the things that Coach Leipold made very clear when he came in, was that he wants to change the recruiting field in state. And I think that's so important because that's where a lot of your to have a big presence in the state is so important, right? And just in terms of fans and having people want to come to your university because they're KU fans, because they grew up KU fans, is so important. And so having both teams be competitive is just good all around, because obviously people want to go to a place that's competitive, and KU doesn't have to pull a bunch of strings just to get the people in their state to their college, right? But people want to come there because not only are we winning and we're a top 25 team in the nation, but we also are getting all new facilities, and it's such a good place, and obviously pulls away from K-State's pool, and that's always a great thing too. So I think you'll see. I mean, just as you get better, that's how it works, right? The rich get richer. As we see KU get better, they're going to get more recruits. They're going to get better Kansas recruits, pull those away from K-State. And so it'll be not only a better KU, but a more equal playing field in the state. And I think that's better all around.
Assuming both Leipold and Kleiman stay around a while, do you think KU is in a prime position to overtake, regardless of the outcome of this weekend? Is KU in a good position to kind of overtake the state, so to speak, as the top football program? Is it sustainable? And again, this is assuming both coaches stick around. I guess, which program do you feel like, as trying to be non-biased as a KU fan as we can here, which program do you think kind of is positioned to kind of hold the Sunflower Showdown down for the next several years?
Yeah, and that's tough, right? Because that's a great question. One, because K-State has always been, not always, but for the last 20 years, I would say, has been very solid, right? They've always, they may have been maybe middle of the pack Big 12 some years, but they've always been a very solid team, right? And that's because of the culture Bill Snider brought around. And obviously Kleiman fits right into that mold of just trying to they're very much so a team that they don't beat themselves. They're always competitive. They're very disciplined. And so I think that having Leipold be very similar to that mold obviously is all the better for KU. In terms of continuing down the road, I mean, I think that Leipold and the culture that he has is very similar to K-State's and what they preach. And it's about discipline. It's about sustainability. And so I think down the road, you'll see a very equal playing field of just two programs that are super disciplined and super competitive. And so I'm really interested to see how the future shakes out. Obviously, it really depends on them staying around and how long Leipold wants to coach for, because obviously, he's not 30 years old. So so it really depends on who that when the time comes, and he can be a Bill Snider and coach forever. That'd be great. But when the time comes to hand off that baton, I think that's going to be what happens then. And I'm sure with Travis Goff at the helm, I'm not too worried because he's right there. He's the one who brought Leipold in, and I'm sure that transition will be very, very sustainable. So, and to answer your question, I think they're both very I think Leipold has put the program in a place that something would have to go pretty wrong for it to go back, if that makes sense. Like I think that Kansas has finally seen the vision, and they finally see the ticket to get there through what Leipold has brought with him. And I think that once you instill that winning culture, like I think it's it would be very difficult to stray away from and go do a 180 and go back to where we were, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then where I was going to lead that question into next then is with the new look Big 12 coming next year, the losing Oklahoma and Texas, bringing some of the teams that we've already seen this year, are KU and K-State, in your mind, the two potential favorites of this new look Big 12 from a football standpoint coming down the future? I know we still got teams like Baylor out there. Oklahoma State's still a very solid team. Texas Tech and TCU are still around. But it kind of feels like just the direction of these two programs, that with this new look Big 12, this is a great opportunity for both programs to kind of solidify themselves at the top of the Big 12 moving forward.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think that you look across the Big 12, it's a very equal playing field. And I think some teams are trending up, some teams are trending down. And I think KU and K-State, obviously, like I said before, K-State's always that solid marker. They're usually at the top or towards the top. But KU is very much the trending up. And, if you start at the bottom, the only way to go is up. And so very much so trending up. And I think that with the shakeout of this new conference, I think KU really has a big opportunity, especially in the next couple of years, to really solidify themselves at the top of the Big 12. And what a great world that would be, right?
Yeah.
And something I'm super excited to watch. But so to answer your question, I think it's very likely as things shake out here that we could see KU be near the top of the Big 12, which would be super awesome.
I think as fans, we're seeing that, and we're looking at this program like there's no way we're turning back. And yeah, Texas, Oklahoma, but then leaving, we are at the top. It's us, it's K-State. There's other programs there, but we have a responsibility to uphold some integrity within this league and show why we don't need programs like Oklahoma and Texas. They're great programs. Let's be honest. Let's give them their respect. They're great programs.
Yeah.
But we don't need them in the Big 12 to look like a powerhouse conference, because Kansas is on that upward trajectory. So, I think as fans, we are seeing that. But also as fans, we're looking at the next big step is going to be beating K-State.
Yeah.
This is a huge, huge matchup from a fan perspective. One thing I'm very curious about, I mean, you're a former player. You've been in the locker room. What is the atmosphere like in the locker room for this game? Because, as a fan and as a passionate fan, I don't like K-State. I think K-State fans are a little
obnoxious,
immature, delusional comes to mind, and Twitter is just a nasty place whenever it's this, Sunflower Showdown week. And you kind of think about this is a rivalry. I mean, I wonder if the players have as much hatred for the other team as much as we do. Yeah, I don't think that's the case, because I feel like as a player, game respects game. You guys are probably friends or went to high school with some of these K-State guys. I mean, it's very, very close to the chest for you guys. But what's it like as a player in the locker room leading into this game where the entire fan base wants this one win more than all the others?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that personally, I was always obviously in the camp of very, not necessarily emotional, but very driven when it was K-State week, right? Because when I was in high school, they passed up on me, and KU was the one who offered. And so, I had been talking with K-State for, months, and all of a sudden it stopped, and then they passed over me, and KU picked me up. And so, that at the beginning, I always obviously had that vendetta, I guess. But But I think like it's changed over the years, right? Like I think when I got there was super big hate. Also because we weren't very good in case they beat us every year. And so, but when Leipold came, honestly, it was a little interesting because I think they approach it very much as like this is another game, right? And it's like that's part of the one thing that's like they don't necessarily, when they got there, they don't really know the rivalry, right? And so that's why I think he mentioned like that's why they have like Kansas kids talk, right? It's like because they're learning the rivalry still, and they still like it's becoming their own, right? But they tend to approach it as more of like this is another game, like we like they're no different than any other team we play. And so so you have that balance, right? It's like because if everyone was like me, a Kansas kid, like you'd be playing very emotional, right? But I think if you played just very matter of factly, I think there's also the tension in that of it's a rivalry game, and it is a little different. It's a different game, right? And so the fans think of it differently. Everyone thinks of it differently. So I think like there's a healthy balance there of like you don't want to be on either spectrum. The extreme on either spectrum will kind of be in the middle. And so I think they do a good job of that. I'm trying to balance that out a little bit. But they also have Kansas kids. I'm sure Jared Casey and Mason Fairchild they'll have them push the agenda this week. And that's kind of what they do is they kind of put that on players. They don't necessarily push it themselves, which is fine. I mean, I get it. They want the players to kind of take ownership of all of that kind of stuff. And so it is interesting. There was a lot of people obviously from Kansas who feel very strongly about it. There's also a lot of the transfers and people out of state who, and at least in their first year, don't really understand. They couldn't care less. But then they get in that game and they understand that it's just a little different, and then that becomes part of their game during K-State week. But I don't know if that answers your question totally, but
yeah,
it's a lot of emotion, but it's not, if that makes sense.
It feels like one of those where once you get into the game and the booth's going to be packed, it's going to be rocking, you're going to have an electric fan base. There's going to be a lot of K-State fans too, but it's going to be an electric atmosphere. I know as players, you guys talk about all the time how you feed off of crowd energy, and Leipold talked about the Texas Tech game. We didn't really do anything to get the fans excited and going, so we didn't really get to feed off of that energy because there wasn't any, because the way we were playing sucked it out of the stadium. But going into a game like this, you're going to have an electric fan base to hopefully feed off some of that energy to get the juices flowing for such a big-time game. So let's get into some of the headlines of this. Game headlines here, and I think there's several big ones here. Obviously, from a KU K-State perspective, K-State has dominated the series the last 14 years. They've won 14 straight, going all the way back to 2008 was our last victory, and of course that was the year after the Orange Bowl. That was a 52-21 blowout back when Josh Freeman was the quarterback at K-State. So that should make all of us feel pretty old by now. Because not only was that 14 years ago, he also had his short-lived NFL career and retired. So 14 years since the last victory over K-State. Obviously, KU still holds the long-term records and wins there, but we know that this K-State team has been the dominant program for pretty much the last 20 years. Coming into this game, K-State, one of the best offenses in the nation, not just the Big 12. They averaged almost 40 points a game, 38.8. Will Howard didn't start the season quite how he wanted to, but he's been a very dynamic quarterback. This is a very impressive K-State offense that's got a lot of ways that they can attack you. They run for over 200 yards a game. They've got really two quarterbacks that they could use. Avery Johnson could totally get playing time in this and do some damage. But Will Howard being the upperclassman guy here, this is a big matchup for him to kind of cap off the season. I know they are still technically fighting for Big 12 championship appearance, coming off of their appearance last year in Big 12 champ status. But big time matchup. Thankfully for us, though, one of the headlines in this was injury concerns. At last week's game, there were a ton of injuries. It felt like every other play somebody was dropping. Biggest one being Jason Bean, of course, got knocked out a couple times. The status as of now is it's anticipated that he's going to play. There's nothing official out there. I'm sure they're not going to say anything official until it's game day. But it points to him playing, which of course is a big boost for us offensively. Would still love to see Jalen Daniels out there, and I don't think that's happening whatsoever. This is going to be Jason Bean's game, and if he can't go completely, then Cole Ballard gets a fun chance to drive some energy in the booth and put up a big performance. So I think that was the one big headline coming to this, is just how dominant K-State's been over us the last several years. On paper, they are the better team offensively in just about every statistical category. Defense is not the same defense that it had last year. They've lost a lot of guys, but they're still a very good defense, very well-coached team, like you said. They don't make mistakes that often. If you're going to beat K-State, it's going to be because you have to make them make mistakes, and they don't really ever do that. They don't beat themselves that often. Another big headline, though, coming into this week is it's senior night in the booth. A lot of seniors on this team this year, a lot of guys that came back, a lot of guys that have decisions to make on if they're going to go after this year or stay. So I want to get into a little bit of what it's like going through the senior night process as a player throughout the week, and how that may be different or a bigger experience knowing that it's against K-State. So kind of walk us through, I know going back to your senior night last year, what it's like preparing that week of, knowing that that's the last time you're going to run out onto that field in front of the crowd and give them one more opportunity to walk out with a win.
Yeah. Again, it's a weird mindset because, like, one, you don't want to blow it up into something bigger than it is, right? But you also want to save for the moment. So it's like, it really is like a balance of like, you don't want to play the game like sad or sentimental, right? Because that's weird. You're playing a football game. It's very violent. Like, you also don't want to just like go through the game and get to the end and be like, oh, that was my last game. That's weird. So it's a balance, and you really have to work hard on it. And because if you let it become too much, then you risk not playing as well. And if you think too much about it, you risk not playing as well. So, but it is super interesting that the last game is against K-State. Yeah. And it adds another layer that that this is the last game that will be played in the old traditional Booth Stadium. So adds another layer of like, man, this is the last of the last, especially for those seniors. So, it's a weird mindset to go through a senior night, because, even my senior night, it was not very fun because we got walloped by Texas and I had an MCL injury, and they even took me out in the third quarter once I got hit with it because it was pretty lopsided. So, I did not have a very good senior day, but I really hope that, to have your senior day be K-State and last day at the booth, I really hope those boys come out hard, and I really hope Jason Bean gets to play, because what an incredible story that would be. Just not super big hopes of even playing a lot this season, but coming back and taking the team to be 7 wins and hopefully plus that on the season, and obviously finishing off your senior game. Last game in the booth against K-State with a win, that would be so awesome for him and all the rest of the seniors as well. And so I'm really hoping that they savor the moment, but not let it distract them from obviously what they got to do and their mission at hand, which I don't think they will. So it is a weird experience, so I'll tell you that.
So let's talk about the senior class for a minute. A lot of seniors on this team, a lot of guys that have been around the program a long time and have had a big impact. So I'm just going to throw out a handful of names, and I know I'm going to miss quite a few, but these are the guys that I think fans have seen the most of. Hayden Hatcher, guy you played with for several years. This is his last go around. Quentin Lassiter, we know what the Lassiter family has meant to KU. This is another potential last go around for him. Transfer like Craig Young and Devin Phillips. I think Craig Young has the opportunity to come back next year, but he is listed as a senior. 2 guys that have also been big, impactful transfers. Dominic Pooney, one of the strongest guys on that offensive line right now. Mike Nowitzki on that offensive line. I think he's a senior. I might be wrong, but I think this is his last year too. He might have that.
More, but
he might still have that COVID year still.
Yeah.
And then guys like Rich Miller, another big time transfer that Leipold brought in and has really set the culture tone on the defense. Another big Kansas guy, Mason Fairchild, like you talked about. He's been here several years, and this is a game that's going to mean a ton to him. But then I wanted to kind of circle it to the two big names, I think, for senior status. One on the offense, one on the defense. Offense, of course, we mentioned it, Jason Bean. We talked about on our last episode of the significance of him coming back this year and how different the year could look had he not, and Jalen still had the injuries. I think fans, I was listening to another podcast and they were saying how Jason Bean for Kansas football is kind of like what David McCormick was for Kansas basketball. You love the guy. He was here a long time. He's going to be up there in a lot of statistical categories because of how long he played. Also gave you a lot of frustrations and headaches, but has made some key big moments that fans are always going to remember him for. And of course, Jason Bean walking off the field with his head held high, beating Oklahoma at home is going to be ingrained in fans' memories for decades to come. Yeah. So super excited that he gets a nice senior send-off. Like I said, hopefully he is playing and he has a good game. And then let's go to the defense. Mr. Kenny Logan, another guy that decided to come back twice. He had opportunities to go to the draft, to transfer, to just leave. He came back 2 years in a row, decided to come back to give this another run. He's been the leader of this defense for several years. He's been at the center of creating this culture on the defense. Just another guy that I think fans are going to really truly miss after his time is done, just because of the impact he's had. And I don't know if you guys have seen some of the interviews that he's had this week and some of the tweets he's fired off about senior night, just how it's all starting to hit him. And I think it's just going to be so much fun seeing him come out just full of energy, emotion, and excitement. So just to see this senior class go out against a team like K-State, obviously we hope that it's a big time matchup. But any other seniors you guys want to really point to, or just that you're looking forward to seeing one more time in a Kansas uniform at home?
Yeah, I mean, all those guys, especially the guys who were there before Leipold got there, like Hayden and Kenny and Mason even, and I'm sure there's some you listed off that I've forgotten to mention, but those guys are just super special in my heart, because like they could have left at any time, right? And they didn't, just like me, they didn't know what really Leipold was going to bring. It could have been just another coach. I heard that a lot of like, we're going to win, and then we didn't. And so I just really have a lot of respect for guys like that who were here pre-Leipold. And just how they stuck it out for the program is awesome. So I hope their senior day is everything they want it to be. Beating K-State at home, I really hope that they get sent off the right way. And that's the thing, right? It's like when your senior day, it's different, and it's like the underclassmen don't understand necessarily, because they're not a senior, of like how significant the day is. Like, you want to get sent off right. Like, no one wants to lose on their senior day. But the same attitude changes when it's actually your senior day, and so So I hope that the team can rally around them, because of how hopefully like those guys have poured into the underclassmen at some point in time, obviously. And so I hope that they can rally around and win this game for the seniors, because of how much they've done for them. And that's what you would hope, as a team, that everyone plays for everyone, that the underclassmen can recognize what all the seniors have done for them, and come out and put on a good show and win a ball game at home against their rival, because of how special this senior class is. So that's what I hope for all those guys. Love them. Kenny Logan and I have butted heads many a time, but he's a good guy and he's done a lot for the program. And so I really hope that he gets sent out the right way too. And all those guys, Mason and Dominic, is going to be super dominant wherever he goes. If he chooses to stay, he's going to be great. If he chooses to go, he's going to be great. But as you're listing them off, man, just some big shoes to fill. And so I think if all those guys you read continue on their senior day and move on, I think that's next year's going to be the big test of the culture, right? It's like, okay, like you have your main guys who really instilled the culture into the rest of the team gone. Like, you know, you don't have Kenny Logan anymore. If Mike leaves, like you don't have Mike Nowitzki or Rich who have been with Leipold for years. And so, and the rest of them, like Mason, who really took on the culture and has been a big part of the change. You have the guys who really were the catalysts of the change starting to move on because, you know, it's year 3. And so that's going to be next year is going to be a really big test for the program, I think. And I think they'll be fine. But it's like, how well did the leaders leave it? You know, how well did they leave the culture in the hands of the younger classes? I think will be obviously a testament to their legacy, which is going to be great. And we'll see.
I know we've talked mostly everything but the game itself.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, let's actually just spend a few minutes diving into this game. Again, K-State, KU. K-State's ranked 21st in the country. KU's ranked 25th. So a top 25 matchup at home for this Sunflower Showdown. What are some of the key matchups that you guys have coming into this game? What do you know about this K-State team that's going to give KU fits? What are the points of emphasis that KU needs to really hone in on to make this a competitive game? KU's opening up as a 7.5-point underdog, which I don't think we're surprised about considering we know Jalen's not playing and that we don't really know the status of Jason Bean's health yet. But just talk to me, guys, about some of the matchups that you are going to be focusing in on in this game for KU to have a chance.
Man, for me, I think it's I just can't wait for the quarterback versus quarterback battle. I think K-State has been up and down throughout the season. I think we've seen their fans have a little bit of, you know, praise and then a little bit of criticism both ways for Howard. And I think it'll be interesting to see him against Bean because let's be honest, Bean has had high praise and high criticism too. Some of it deserved, some of it not. But man, I just got to look at this matchup and I got to think, who's the better quarterback here? And I might be biased. I'm going to say it's Bean. I'm going to say the guy can absolutely win this game. I'm excited to see a continuation of what we saw against Oklahoma, where we saw him just coming alive with the passing plays, with an equal distribution of running plays, passing plays, playing in certain ways, kind of like I mentioned it in a previous podcast, but he was playing a lot like Patrick Mahomes does for the Chiefs. And I know that's kind of fan servicey to say, but it's just true. You look at the tape and it's like, man, this guy can scramble. He was making good reads. And I just want that to continue. I'm hoping that he's healthy and ready to go. But I would love to see just their matchup and see who comes out on top. And I think it's going to put the argument to rest on who's the best quarterback in Kansas outside of Jalen Daniels.
I totally agree with that. I think for me, it's gonna happen up front. Obviously, I think their offensive line is super experienced. You know, you have Cooper Beebe over there, who's super good, and I think we have a younger D line, but obviously one that's super deep. And so I think it's going to start up front. Hopefully, we can win the line of scrimmage and create some havoc for them and cause Will Howard, or hopefully it's Will Howard, to make some mistakes and make some throws, because obviously during the season he's shown that a little bit of that. When he gets flustered, he can make a lot of mistakes, and so hopefully that plays into that, and that starts with the defensive line being disruptive and what they script up for third downs and things like that. I think a sneaker kind of thing to watch out for is special teams. K-State has always been super just disciplined on their special teams, and so last year we saw not necessarily pro them, but we fumbled a punt return, and that caused us to set us back early in the game, and they've always been super disciplined on special teams and super hard to take care of, especially on kick returns and punt returns. And so I really think that's going to be the special teams battle is going to be really good. Obviously, we have Sean Snider, and it kind of helps us out there. And you've seen it. I've seen it anyway, of like shoring up special teams and being a lot more disciplined on what we do. And I've seen it just in our gameplay. And so I think that battle is kind of one that you wouldn't really think of, but one that has popped out to me to be very strong K-State kind of just virtue. They just were really good with that. And so I think watching out for that. Big plays on special teams are always super momentum shifts. And so if we can minimize that, it's going to be big for us.
Wouldn't it just be hilarious if at some point in the game, Sean Snider draws up some sort of sneaky trick special teams play to pull one over on K-State? I'm sure there's no actual animosity between Sean Snider and K-State. You know, his family bleeds K-State, but he is a KU coach right now. So his priority is to game plan for this team. I think it would just be hilarious if he tried to sneak in some sort of intriguing special teams play call that has a major shift in the game. Because like you said, those plays can really swing a game. They can swing a game fast.
I would be, because I saw that Leipold said that Sean Snyder is going to talk to the team about the rivalry, and I would really love to be able to listen and be a fly on the wall to hear what he has to say. Just in terms of like, I don't know, just what he would say. You know what I mean? Obviously,
yeah. Because how would you approach that? It's like,
So
my first words when I was born was Wildcat. You know, how do I prepare? I mean, he's got a lot of insight on the program and the team and the history, of course, he could speak to. But yeah, how do you go in and get a bunch of guys riled up for K-State week when your dad's sitting there on speakerphone going, hey, don't be saying too much negative things about this program.
I just really wonder what he's.
It's got to be an interesting dynamic. I really want to ask you, what is it like preparing for a guy like Will Howard, a mobile quarterback who also has a big arm, big body. He's not your prototypical, he is your prototypical NFL body type, but a bigger quarterback, that Ben Roethlisberger type. As a defensive lineman, preparing for a team like K-State who's going to use the quarterback run, whether it's him or Avery Johnson, what's different about going after a guy like that and preparing for a quarterback with size and mobility?
Yeah, just a lot of attention to detail around the board, right? Because as a defensive line, you have to always know where he's at, and you can't just rush the way you want, because obviously that creates holes and escape lanes or passing lanes, and he can hit either. And so when you have a quarterback like that, it's more of a unified rush. Like it's drawn up third downs to get him where we want him, right? Like pressure him one side, loop a guy around on the other, so he can flush one way and we have him trapped, right? And so it's more of a balanced rush, more of a keep your lanes and cover each other rather than like pin your ears back and go get it. Because when you do that and everyone rushes their own rush, it creates holes, lanes, which are no bueno with a guy like Will Howard who can hurt you down the field if he throws it, or if you give him a huge lane, he's going to take it. And so that's one thing. The other thing is that, in terms of the back end, like in terms of runs and quarterback runs, like, obviously, and some teams, you don't really have to worry about the quarterback and when zone read and things happen. But with this team, you definitely do. And so always making sure you have a guy for the quarterback run and being super disciplined on that. Because you can kind of get lulled to sleep, right? If you play teams that don't utilize their quarterbacks like that, you kind of get lulled to sleep. You don't really pay attention to it, make it a big deal. And so they try to make it a big deal during weeks like this of, quarterbacks are always taken care of so that we know where they are and we can prepare for that during the week. So it's a lot different, a lot more attention to detail for the quarterback specifically. Because you just know that they can do either. So it's good.
I think the one big matchup I was going to throw out there too is just the run games on both sides. Like we said, K-State has a very dominant run game. They average about 200 rushing yards a game. KU has been very susceptible to the run this year, and in the games we've struggled, it's because we've allowed a big chunk play on multiple possessions offensively down the field. So I think the run game, can we be disciplined on the reads like you mentioned there? Can we be a sure tackling team, wrap guys up, get them down early? I think that's going to be huge. So to me, this is a game where I know it's senior night for Kenny Logan, but I would be shocked if Kenny Logan does not have double-digit tackles, a forced fumble, a tackle for something like that. Like he's going to make his impact in this game felt. And I think that run game is where K-State wants to get going, because if they get that run game going, that's going to open up the passing lane so easily to move downfield. And all it takes is one giant 40-yard chunk play or Will Howard zone read for 35, 40 yards that breaks this game open and it makes it a tough matchup. So I think that's where my focus is can we slow down the run game? Can we stay disciplined? You're not going to stop the run game, but can you be disciplined and not give up the big chunk plays? Force them into third and longs, fourth and mediums, if that. Just stay disciplined there. But let's kind of finish up with game predictions. I know we didn't dive in super detailed in the back and forth of the game itself. KU again, 7.5-point underdog. The over/under is I think 55.5 last time I checked. What are you guys feeling coming into this matchup?
Man, I just think it can be. I just think it can be a high-scoring affair. I'm not sure if I like where the line's at right now. With the way that this team has been playing as of late, if we kind of throw out the Texas Tech game, because we just so many variables, right, that just weren't a part of what we normally see in a game. This could absolutely be a shootout. And I think when both teams are this juiced up for a matchup like that, it's going to be a shootout. I think it'll be a classic. As far as prediction, it'll be a close one, and I'm going to be a homer, and I have no gripes about it. I'm picking Kansas 45-44 in
okay, big offensive shootout.
Maybe overtime is kind of where that comes in, but yeah, I just think it'll be a classic. I think we win on a last-second field goal. Hopefully, we've talked about the field goals. We talked about Seth Keller on this podcast so far. Hopefully, we're close enough and we're in his range, and we get it done.
Yeah, I'm going 38-35 KU. I personally think that the defense will play into it quite a bit. I don't think it'll be a super big shootout, but a high-scoring game. But in the end, I think that if Jason Bean plays, I think we can get it done. And I mean, if Cole Bauer plays, I'm sure it's going to be great too. But obviously, I'm hoping for Jason Bean, and I hope that the offense is clicking. And that's what I'm going 38-35 KU.
I like both of those. Having it come down to a field goal. I think I'm going to give you how I hope the game goes. I do think it's going to be a big game offensively. I just don't see K-State just doesn't have many games this year where their offense hasn't shown up. So I think their offense is going to show up. They're going to be just as juiced and amped for this game because anytime it's a rivalry game, especially now that KU is a decent, worthy opponent, they're going to have even more energy and excitement for this game to show up. So I do think it will be high scoring. For me, I just feel like it's going to come down to this back and forth, and everything lines up for Jason Bean to lead this team down the field. And I want to say field goal route like you guys both did, but I'm going to say KU's coming down the stretch down more than a field goal, needs the touchdown to win. Jason Bean leads them to a touchdown drive at the end of the game. K-State doesn't have time to get the ball back. We run it out 41-37. 41-37. Score as time expires. Fans rush the field. KU K-State. We win the Sunflower Showdown, and doesn't even matter what happens the following week. Don't even care at that point with Cincinnati. But fans rush the field to a glorious Jason Bean last-second game-winning drive touchdown. That's my prediction and my hope.
That's the dream.
That'd be great.
That'd be fun. Well, all right, let's wrap up there. I know we went longer than we planned on, but Sam, thanks again for joining us. Always appreciate having your insight as a former player. and a Kansas yourself. For you guys, Jayhawk fans, you'll have a couple days to throw out your predictions, so make sure you send those our way. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. Make sure if you're listening to us on Spotify, you're taking time to follow the podcast first off, but two, to leave us a 5-star review. And of course, if you're over here on YouTube, we kindly ask that you hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 250 subscribers before the end of the year, and we're getting close to that. And you hitting that subscribe button will help us get there, and we'd be gratefully appreciative of that. And then just as a quick reminder, some other things going on right now. Again, peak of sports season. We got KU basketball, Chiefs football, even a little bit of Royals talk on the podcast right now. We've got that episode out there about Royals offseason. You can go check out with Cody Tapp of 610 Sports Radio, get some of his predictions about the offseason, some of the moves the Royals can make. Chiefs have a big-time matchup against the Eagles coming up on Monday Night Football. That we'll have a game preview out from the aftermath almost about the same time that you guys will be checking this preview out. And, of course, plenty of KU basketball coming. They just knocked off Kentucky, of course. And even though we don't have a recap on that specifically, we'll have some talk about the Maui Invitational and some of the other stuff coming up. So plenty of excitement around the area for local sports, Kansas, Chiefs, Royals, all that going on. The best way to stay up with all that is to be subscribing to the podcast, of course. So, again, hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends. And as always, guys, rock chalk, and let's go get this victory this weekend.
Rock chalk.